left off at the end of Mishnah Vav 6 that Rabbi Shimon Prachi concludes, "Havidonis kol ha'odom lekavsus." You should judge everyone favorably. So I'd mentioned that what does mean judge? Judge means if something is clear that it's wrong or clear it's right, it's not a judgment call. A judgment call means you must make an evaluation and determine what it is. So we'd explained that the commentators explain the person sees somebody do an action and there's a question, what did he do, the wrong thing or the right thing? So if he's a middle of the road person, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's not a middle of the road person, let's say he's a person has a record that he does the wrong thing, one does not give him the benefit of the doubt. Although it's a 50-50 call. What about if a person's literally a Russia? A Russia, he's truly evil. Thought he has his negative record. And it seems he does something right. Do you give him the benefit of the doubt? So Rabbeinu Yonah in his commentator explains, he cites bases on a verse in Mishlei in Proverbs, that a person who's truly evil, we always are suspect that there's an ulterior motive. And even when he looks lily white, he's only presenting himself in that light because he wants to somehow convey that he is innocent or he's righteous, but he's not doing it for the right reason. I'll give you an example. Rambam rules, the law is that if a person divorces his wife and it's under duress, it's not a valid divorce. It has to be given by the husband through his free will. If it's under duress, it's not valid. That's the law. What about if the court rules because of the circumstance of the marriage, he must divorce her? And he says, I'm not divorcing her. And he's adamant that he's not going to follow the dictate of the ruling of the court. And we're talking about a Jewish court. I mean, when the Jewish court rules that he must divorce her, that means they are speaking in the name of God, that according to Judaism, God wants you should divorce your wife, and he still won't divorce her. So the law is, based on the Talmud, that even if they have to physically beat him until he says, I agree to give it, I consent, they have a right to do that. And when he says, I give it willingly, it's a valid divorce. So Rambam, Maimonides asks, well, we know that the only reason why he's saying, I am consenting to this divorce because he can't tolerate the pain any longer. But in truth, he doesn't want to give this divorce document, this writ of divorce. It's only because, as they said, he's a screaming uncle. Not Uncle Sam, uncle. Okay, that's what he's screaming. Can't tolerate the pain. Rambam says, nevertheless, it's valid. Why? Listen to this. Because the will of every Jew is to do the will of God. So why is he opposed? Because he gets a bug in his head. It's called evil inclination. But the essence of the Jew, because of his spiritual makeup, his soul, he wants to do the right thing. Except we get off kilter. And we believe that we dictate our lives. But when the pain is not tolerable, then we come to our senses. So the true will of every Jew is to do the will of God. So if the rabbinic court rules that this man must give his writ of divorce to his wife and terminate the relationship, when he says yes, although it's due to pain, that is his true will. That is the Rambam. So that's his true will. That's not an evaluation. But if not for that, and he does something, this kind of person, what do we say it is? He has his ulterior motive. He has his reason. So even when he does the right thing, since the man himself, I'll give you an example. A person is a pathological liar. And he has a record, pathological. and he comes and he shares with you information, and you find out it's accurate information, accurate and very important information. But he's a pathological liar. Do you say the man turned over a new leaf? But he's telling the truth. You don't understand. He's only telling the truth because it's to his best interest to tell you the truth. He's still a pathological liar. In this instance, it's because it's for his interest. He's telling you the truth because he wants to gain your confidence that he's an honest man. But that's one of the shenanigans of the pathological liar. He deceives you to make you believe, but it's not. So when we say you should evaluate everyone, l'kav schus, we're not talking about a person who's truly evil. We're talking a person who's a middle-of-the-road person, a person who, unfortunately, many times he fails. If many times he fails, it looks like he's doing the wrong thing. He probably is doing the wrong thing. But when he does the right thing, you say he's doing the right thing. The person who's truly evil, you say no. Even though it seems he's doing the right thing, maybe in action he's doing the right thing, but in actual essence, in his intent, qualitatively, the action is something negative. We find that Bilam originally wanted to curse the Jews. He was the prophet of the nations. So God says, I don't want you to curse them. So he says, let me bless them. God says, I don't want you to bless them. Why? He's blessing them. So the Midrash says, it's like you say to a bee, I don't want your honey, I don't want your sting. They go hand in hand. You take the honey, you get stung. The blessing of an evil person, no good could come out of that. When you have to do with evil, evil breeds evil. See, even though it seems to be positive, this positive will lead to negative. Therefore, even the person, he seems to be righteous, knowing who he is, you don't give him the time of day. You don't give him that credibility because his essence is something which is rotten. But give the man a chance. You can't give the man a chance. Tell you a story. Many years ago, there was a certain person came to Yad Avram, and this person had a few PhDs. He was a lawyer, went to Oxford, he had a PhD in chemistry, in physics, martial arts, very brilliant guy. And he was thriving. He was a single person, he must have been in his upper 30s. And could you hold one moment, please? So, and he's really, probably, he's one of the most enjoyable interactions in Talmud with this person. That's how bright he was. And one day he comes to me, he says, I met an old rabbi of mine, a Reform rabbi. And he grew up with this rabbi. His name was Balfour Brickman. Who was Balfour Brickman? Balfour Brickman was, together with Schindler, one of the leaders of the Reform movement. And when the gays started to march in New York, he marched with the gays. This Balfour Brickman, he was a man then about 70 years old. The story goes back at least 30 years ago, maybe a little more. And he says, what are you doing? He tells him, I studied Talmud. I never enjoyed anything as much as this, more than law, more than physics, more than chemistry. So he says to this person, he says, could you ask the rabbi, can I come and attend the Talmud class? This is Balfour Brickman. So I said to him, no, don't want him to attend it. And I will explain in a minute why. I just want to hear what you say, why you would. The reason why I said no, if there's any way I could turn this man around, definitely I would do it. However, I felt at his age and where he was and what he was involved in, a person has a jaundiced eye. You could show him the most beautiful painting. When he looks at it, he sees it through that jaundiced lens. And whatever he takes, he's going to process it within that context, which he is. Therefore, any information which he calls from me, from the Talmud or teachings, he will use it only to what? To reinforce what he believes, and he will distort it and corrupt it. And that's why, because I felt where he was at in terms of his position, in terms of his beliefs, in terms of his perspectives, in terms of what he's done and what he's involved in, there's no other way other than the way I saw it. Therefore, I said no. Told him no. I don't want him to come. He's not welcome to come. That's the reason why. But if my evaluation would have been that, I think I'll make a difference, shed some light on him, that he should have an understanding of what it's all about, definitely I would say yes. It's not a question.
Rabbi, given what we're studying, why wouldn't you have given him the benefit of the doubt as a rabbi?
Well, you mean, if I call you rabbi, that means I give you the benefit of the doubt.
No. As I know you could answer that way, but I should have said,
wait, Larry, we just finished. Larry, I just gave you an example. King Solomon says in Proverbs, if somebody is truly off the path and a bad guy, even when he does something which seems to be right and correct, he's doing it with an ulterior motive, because his essence is negative. And even when he does something positive and he looks lily white, he's not lily white. There's something behind there which is driving that. He has no ulterior motive. That's exactly what we're saying now.
But if you sat with him for 5 minutes, Rabbi, given your skill set, you'd know it. But you assumed, you made an assumption.
No. Even if he's there for 5 minutes, let's say he comes one time and he hears something. And not necessarily, you don't see it right away. You don't see things right away. But if a person has a track record and he's where he is, everything he processes is within that mindset. I'll give you an example. Anti-Semites, you know what they say? I'm not saying this man was an anti-Semite, not at all. Anti-Semites, some of my best friends are Jews. If you hear that, those people.
Very often.
Okay. Some of my best friends are Jews, but the man's an anti-Semite. That means his core is something he can't tolerate Jews. So why is this guy his best friend? He's a Jew. Because he sees that Jew in that light because it's something which fits into his framework. Otherwise, he put all Jews in that same framework. The answer is this guy, yes, other people not. This guy is good. The rest of them, if I could exterminate them, I would exterminate them. That's his level of anti-Semitism. You understand?
But Rabbi, I sat in a lecture at UN Plaza in someone's living room one time, so many years ago. I was blown over by what you had to say. How do you know, Rabbi?
Larry, you're not that, because you're not a prince. It's not a perspective of yours. You're what we call you. It's not a person. You're sold on a certain value, a way of life, and you're not that. This man has a way of life. He's proven it endless times over. He lives and breathes it, and there's nothing he won't do for it. He was for the first people who marched in the gay movement when gays were still not accepted in society. Besides being one of the leaders of the Reform movement. His position is there's nothing divine about Judaism, not even the written law. It's an ethical, moral religion. That's it. It has nothing to do with God. Of course, we believe in God. I'm not sure what he did or didn't, but maybe he did. But what does God say? God says what I think he says.
Okay.
Larry, I'm not saying anything too extreme.
No, I got it, Rabbi. Listen, I was being a little bit of a devil's advocate because you earlier said to someone, either you answered to Bob or Shmuel, that maybe you would have made a difference. That's the maybe.
So my evaluation was because of his track record and what he represents and what he is, and what he does. That was my evaluation.
Well, your evaluation worked for you. I mean, that's clear, and it's yours, and you're entitled to act on it. But you also, you give us room to try to create space for others to be moved by us. You even say, speak to a person who might.
It's like Larry's online at the, waiting to get his car. And this guy's in his way, says, "Hey, buddy, move over." And he gives him a bump. You know, he makes some space for some people. You know, let him in the line, don't let him in the line. That kind of space is okay, but I'm not going about that kind of space.
Okay, Rabbi, I hear you. I'm only being achasnik here. That's okay.
There used to be a person they used among Shia's group, they used to call one person a space cadet. He was a space cadet. Make space for him.
Right.
You put him on the Sputnik and shoot him up, you know, and then you meet Khrushchev up there. You got it, the Sputnik.
Thanks, Rabbi.
In the time of the Talmud, there was a type of idolatry which they worship was called Markulis. In English, it's called Mercury. They would worship Mercury. What was Mercury? You know, they have in Ireland or Scotland, they have a thing called Stonehenge, where they have these vertical and horizontal stones built in fields. That's exactly what this deity looked like. And the way they worshipped it was they would take stones and they would stone the deity. They would stone this structure.
Did you want to record this, Rabbi?
It's recording.
Oh, okay.
They would stone it. It was called Markulis. And the more if you threw the stone and you would chip it, the structure, it was considered a greater level of worship. But that's the way they worshipped it. So somebody goes to a Jew, a devout Jew, he says, "How would you like to stone this idol?" And he's not aware that the way they worship this idol is by stoning. He said, "Be my pleasure. I pitched on a team. I was a pitcher. I could throw a ball 600 miles an hour. And if I throw the stone, either the stone will be pulverized or the idols will be pulverized. It'll be my pleasure." But the great tzaddik doesn't realize that the way you worship this idol is by throwing stones at it and trying to destroy it. And he does it. And he does it with gusto. But he doesn't realize he's doing an act of idolatry. Because that's the manner in which they worship it. So Rambam writes, he cites a Talmud, that you have a person who's corrupted in his beliefs, and you want to teach him Torah. Until you bring him on the path, a straight path, not even observance, belief-wise, perspective-wise, you're not permitted to teach him Torah. Why? Because exactly what I said, because since where he's at, he has this corrupted perspective of what God is, what everything is, he's going to process that Torah within his own jaundiced lens. Therefore, he says, if you teach him Torah, it's like taking the stone and throwing it at this deity. Although your intention is to destroy it, but you don't realize you're worshiping the idol, because that's its mode of worship. You think you're changing him, just the opposite. You're giving more fuel to the monster to be more of a monster, to create greater damage, to desecrate the Torah. Those are the words of Rambam, but it's based on the Gemara. This is what the Talmud says. Kol hamalamed Torah Talmud she'eino hogun. You teach Torah to an inappropriate person. And the Rambam explains what's inappropriate. He doesn't have proper beliefs. He doesn't proper innate character. He's flawed, corrupted in character. Teaching him Torah is disgracing Torah. But it's Torah. It'll change him. It's not going to change him. Because he's corrupted. It's like believing you destroy the idol. What you're doing is that you're actually worshiping the idol, because that's its mode of worship.